Ever wish you could, like, download knowledge straight into your brain? You know, Matrix style.
Yeah, who hasn't?
Well, today we're diving into the world of neuromorphic computing, which is kind of like that. It's where scientists are taking inspiration from the most powerful computer we know, the human brain,
Right.
to revolutionize AI.
And what's really exciting is that we're not just talking theory here.
Yeah.
This research paper you shared takes a deep dive into how they've actually built brain-inspired algorithms onto a computer chip
Okay.
with some pretty amazing results.
Let's unpack this. The title of this paper is a mouthful, I gotta admit.
Yeah.
But the part that jumped out at me was neuromorphic hardware. It sounds like something straight out of science fiction. What is that exactly?
So instead of traditional computer chips that crunch numbers as zeros and ones, neuromorphic hardware is designed to mimic the way actual brains process information.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Your brain is made up of billions of neurons, all interconnected and constantly firing off signals to each other. Neuromorphic chips try to replicate that.
So instead of just being inspired by the brain, they're trying to actually build a brain on a chip.
In a way, yes. And the research we're diving into today focuses on a specific part of the brain called the neocortex.
Uh-huh.
It's basically the command center for all our higher-level thinking, learning, memory, even consciousness.
Right. I remember learning about that in school. It's the wrinkly outer layer that makes us, well, us. But how do you even begin to study something as complex as the neocortex, let alone recreate it?
That's what's so cool about this research. They focused on a particular computational principle they believe the neocortex uses to process information called soft winner-take-all, or SWTA.
Soft winner take all. It sounds almost democratic, like a neural election happening in our brains.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And it's not that far off.
Okay.
Imagine you're walking through a busy city. Sights, sounds, smells, all hitting your senses at once.
Yeah.
Your brain can't process everything, so it has to prioritize. That's where SWTA comes in.
So it's like my brain is running a constant highlight reel, choosing the most important sensory information to focus on.
Exactly. SWTA is how your brain decides which neural signals get amplified and which get tuned out.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me how they actually figured out how this whole SWTA thing works.
So they started by studying the visual cortex in mice because, like us, mice rely heavily on their vision.
Right.
Now, you can't just ask a mouse what its brain is doing, but researchers have some pretty clever tools.
Right.
They used a technique called optogenetics, which is basically like using light to control neurons. Think of it like a neural switch.
Wow. So they're essentially controlling brain activity with light. That's incredible.
It is.
Wow.
And by activating different groups of neurons and observing how they responded to visual stimuli, they could start to piece together the circuitry of SWTA.
This is where it gets really interesting, right? Because they discovered that these things called inhibitory neurons play a key role.
Yes.
I'll be honest, my brain always struggles with the difference between inhibitory and, well, whatever the opposite of inhibitory is.
Don't worry, it's a common stumbling block. Think of it like this. Excitatory neurons are like the gas pedal, pushing signals forward and increasing activity. Inhibitory neurons, on the other hand, are the brakes,
Okay.
dampening down activity and keeping things in check.
Okay, so it's all about balance. Like without the brakes, the whole system would go haywire.
Exactly. And what they found is that these inhibitory neurons are essential for SWTA to work properly.
So how does this all relate back to building a brain on a chip?
Well, once they had a better understanding of the neural circuitry behind SWTA, they decided to see if they could actually recreate it on a neuromorphic chip. They chose to use IBM's True North chip, which was specifically designed to mimic the structure and function of the human brain. But here's the challenge. Translating the messy, complex world of biology into the neat, precise language of computer hardware is no easy feat.
Yeah, I can imagine trying to explain a joke to a computer. It's just not wired for it. So how did they bridge that gap?
They had to develop a whole new set of tools and techniques to translate the biological principles of SWTA into parameters the True North chip could understand.
Okay.
It was a bit like creating a whole new programming language.
Right.
One that spoke both brain and computer.
And the big question is, did it work? Were they actually able to replicate SWTA on this chip?
It was pretty remarkable, actually. They were able to tune the chip's parameters to accurately mimic the activity they were seeing in the mouse visual cortex. The True North chip was essentially performing soft winner-take-all, just like a real brain.
Wow. So they basically taught a computer chip to see the world like a mouse.
In a simplified way, yes. But they didn't stop there. They wanted to see if they could push this brain-inspired AI even further. Think about it. When you see something, your brain doesn't just process that information in isolation.
Right.
It connects it to what you already know, what you're thinking about your past experiences.
Right. Like if I see a dog, my brain doesn't just go, oh, look, pixels arranged in a dog shape. It taps into all those memories of dogs I've known, the way they bark, the way they wag their tails.
Exactly. And a key part of that is something called working memory. It's like your brain's mental whiteboard, where you hold on to information for a short period of time, like remembering a phone number long enough to dial it.
Okay, so how do you give a computer chip a mental whiteboard?
That's where things get really mind-bending. Previous research had shown that by connecting these WTA circuits in a specific way, you could create loops of activity that persist even after the initial input is gone. It's like those neurons were holding on to information, keeping a specific memory active.
So by recreating those loops on the True North chip, they were essentially giving it a kind of artificial working memory.
Precisely. And incredibly, they succeeded. They were able to build what they called a neural state machine on the chip.
Okay, neural state machine. You're definitely hitting my science fiction buttons again. What exactly does that mean?
Imagine your brain has different states, right?
Okay.
You have a state for when you're focused, a state for when you're relaxed, a state for when you're trying to remember where you put your keys.
Now I know that state well.
Each of those states is like a different configuration of neural activity. And what this neural state machine does is allow the chip to switch between those states based on the information it receives, just like our brains flip between different modes depending on what we're doing.
So they basically created a computer chip that can remember things, hold onto information, and change its behavior based on what it's remembering. That's incredible. But let's bring this back down to earth for a second. All this talk of chips that can see and remember is super cool, but what can we actually do with this?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's what the researchers really wanted to find out. So they took this brain-inspired SWTA algorithm and integrated it into a type of AI called a vision transformer, or VIT.
Okay, so a vision transformer is basically AI that's designed to understand images, like giving a computer the gift of sight.
Exactly. They're used in all sorts of applications, from self-driving cars that need to interpret their surroundings to those apps that can identify any plant from a single photo.
So how did they use this brain stuff to give these vision transformers a boost?
They basically used it as a filter. Think of how our brains filter out distractions to focus on what's important. By adding this WTA layer, they hope to make the vision transformer more efficient and accurate. And to test it, they used a bunch of image recognition challenges.
Like a digital eye exam for AI?
Exactly. They started with the MNES dataset, which is basically the AI equivalent of a vision chart. Lots of handwritten digits that the AI has to recognize.
So can this AI read my handwriting? Because even I struggle with that sometimes.
Well, that might be a challenge even for this AI. But the interesting thing is they didn't just stop at basic handwriting recognition. They wanted to test how well the AI could adapt to different situations. Kind of like how our brains can recognize objects even if they're partially hidden or in different lighting.
Okay, so how do you test that in the AI world?
They use different data sets with more challenging images, like SVHN, which has images of house numbers from Google Street View. So different fonts, different backgrounds, all kinds of variations.
Yeah.
And they even use a data set called MNASTM, where the handwritten digits are superimposed on random backgrounds, making them extra tricky to identify.
So it's like they were showing the AI blurry pictures of numbers on a messy desk. If it can read that, it can read anything.
Exactly. And the results were really impressive. In many cases, adding that SWTA layer significantly improved the vision transformer's performance. It was particularly good at handling something called domain shift.
Domain shift? That sounds ominous. What is it?
It's actually a big problem for AI. Imagine training an AI to recognize cats in pictures. You show it thousands of pictures of cats, and it gets really good at identifying them. But then you show it a painting of a cat, or a cat hiding behind a curtain.
And suddenly it's like, cat? What cat? I don't see a cat.
Precisely. The AI struggles because it's been trained on a specific type of image, and it can't always generalize to new situations.
So this domain shift thing is all about how well AI can adapt to the unexpected. How did the brain-inspired AI measure up?
That's where it gets really exciting. They found that the SWTA enhanced vision transformer was much better at handling these shifts. It was able to recognize digits even when they were presented in ways it hadn't seen before. It's like the SWTA layer was giving the AI some of that human-like flexibility and adaptability.
So it's not just about seeing better, it's about thinking better. Now that is seriously cool. But this SWTA magic, did it only work on these vision transformers, or did they try it on other types of AI? So this SWTA magic, Did it only work on these vision transformers, or did they try it on other types of AI?
That's the best part. They didn't just stop at vision transformers. They actually tested this SWTA layer on a whole bunch of different AI architectures. Think efficient net, capsule net, even mobile net. That one's often used in mobile devices because it's so efficient.
Right.
They even tried it with ResNet. And guess what?
Don't keep me in suspense. Did it work its magic again?
In many cases, it did. Adding that SWTA layer seemed to give these AI systems a performance boost across a whole range of tasks, not just image recognition.
So we're not just talking about AI that can see better. We're talking about AI that can potentially learn and adapt more effectively across the board, whether it's analyzing medical images, understanding natural language, or even controlling robots. This could be huge.
You're getting it. And it gets even more interesting. Remember we were talking about image segmentation earlier?
Right, where the AI isn't just recognizing there's a dog in a picture, it's actually outlining the dog pixel by pixel.
Yeah.
It's like giving a computer a paintbrush to color in the lines of reality.
Exactly. And this is where the researchers really put their SWTA enhanced AI to the test. They wanted to see if it could excel not just in object recognition, but also in understanding the scene at that deeper, more detailed level that image segmentation requires.
Okay, I'm imagining the AI trying to perfectly color inside the lines of a coloring book, but the pictures are these complex real-world scenes, not just simple shapes. So how do they test that?
They used a deep learning architecture called RefineNet, which is specifically designed for image segmentation, and trained it on a massive data set called cityscapes.
Cityscapes sounds like a beautiful data set. What's in it?
It's full of images of urban scenes, streets, buildings, cars, pedestrians, all the visual complexity you'd expect in a city. And here's the real kicker. They trained the AI on daytime city scenes, but then tested it on a data set called nighttime driving.
Whoa, that's a big jump. Going from sunny streets to dark, shadowy night scenes, I bet that would trip up a lot of AI systems.
It would, and it does. But the crazy thing is, this SWTA enhanced RefineNet model, it handled the switch surprisingly well. Even though it had only trained on daytime images, it was able to accurately segment those night scenes, picking out cars, pedestrians, obstacles, all with remarkable accuracy.
So it's like the SWTA layer was giving the AI night vision goggles, helping it navigate those tricky lighting conditions and visual ambiguities. That is really wild.
It is wild, and it really highlights the potential of these brain-inspired algorithms. This wasn't just about improving accuracy on a specific task. It was about creating AI that is more robust, more adaptable, more able to handle the unexpected.
It's like they're taking cues from the most adaptable learning machine we know, the human brain. So to wrap this up, we've gone from the inner workings of neurons to AI that can see, remember, and adapt to new situations. What's the big takeaway here?
This research really suggests that we're at the dawn of a new era for AI. By unlocking the secrets of the human brain, we can create AI that's not just more powerful, but more efficient, flexible, and ultimately more human-like in its abilities.
It's both incredibly exciting and a little bit daunting, to be honest.
It is. It opens up a world of possibilities for things like robotics, personalized learning, and of course self-driving cars, anything that relies on AI to interact with the real world.
It's like we're reverse engineering the brain to build a better future for AI. But like you said, it's daunting too. This research raises a lot of big questions about the future of intelligence, consciousness, what it even means to be human in a world where AI is becoming increasingly sophisticated.
Exactly. This is a powerful reminder that as we unlock the secrets of the brain to build better AI, we also have a responsibility to think deeply about the ethical implications of what we're creating.
Well, you've definitely given me, and I'm sure all our listeners out there, a lot to ponder. That's what I love about a good deep dive. It leaves you with more questions than answers, and a sense of wonder about the world and the incredible possibilities of the future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, I think we'll leave it there for today. Thanks for joining us for this incredible journey into the world of neuromorphic computing and brain-inspired AI. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.